Hi guys, happy Monday. So today we're going to talk about sales conversations, which yay, we're finally there. And we're going to talk about how to lead people through a conversation without having to follow a script. If you're comfortable with a script and it's working for you, go ahead. If you're only closing half of your sales, that might be an indicator or less. That might be an indicator that something about the script isn't necessarily working for you. And there's somewhere where you need to find a little bit more connection and a little bit more, maybe just more you involved in it. I personally don't like scripts because I've had some, as a buyer, I've had some bad experiences where it's been very clear that somebody's following a script. And, me, Scorpio, very annoyed because I'm like, can you just pay attention to me instead of having to try to walk through this piece of paper? These questions that you clearly got from somebody else and you're asking me. And it's to the point where if somebody is very clearly reading from a script, I ask or answer kind of more extreme than I would in normal situations and see how they respond so I can get a gauge what that relationship is going to be like. And often I've been told, I'm going to have to just put the script down. And it's like, yay, you're going to actually have a conversation with me. Yay. So instead of a script, I like having a general structure. So I'm still leading the conversation, but it's still based on, connection instead of getting hung up on all the specifics. And this is my own take on it. There are people with similar takes. There are people with very different takes. And, if you want other resources, I can lead you to those and you can experiment and see which pieces feel right to you. Okay, so I'm actually going to start us off with a story. So a few years ago, we were buying a Christmas tree. We typically go to a Christmas tree lot, and a new one opened up, and we'd heard lots of good things. So we went. Of course, we didn't know where anything was. And typically the Christmas tree lots that I go to, they have literally all their trees fluffed up and on display. This one didn't. They had so many trees, only a few were fluffed up. And a lot of them were folded up and wrapped up and squished. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what a squished tree is going to equate to in my house. I also have no concept of size. So I'm like, I just want the biggest tree I can fit in my house. Literally, that's my only idea. So I'm walking around. I have no idea what I'm doing. I am probably looking very overwhelmed. I've got a kid with me. At this point, I think Soren was only not even 2, maybe. Maybe he was 1. He might have been 2. He was old enough to give candy. But anyway, so I'm just walking around, touching random trees, and one of the guys who works there comes up to me, and he started having a conversation with me about Christmas and Soren and what Soren likes and what he's going to be excited about, all of that. And finally he asked me, what kind of tree am I looking for? And he gives me a few questions to figure out what kind of tree? Do I want it tall? Do I want it round? And then he checks in with Matt to see is that the right size? Is it going to fit in the room we're thinking of? So he takes me to a tree after that. Asks me if it's what I'm looking for. I'm not really sure. So he takes me to another tree. I look at it and I'm nope, that one's not right. I want the first one. Very clear, don't need to see any more trees. It took about 5 minutes. 5 minutes to find the perfect tree. It was essentially, he got to know me, he connected. So it wasn't just him barging in let me sell you a thing. No, he had an actual conversation with me first. And then he found out what I wanted. He talked about the benefits. He made sure again what I wanted, how tall it was, how wide, where it's going to go. He asked clarifying questions, which those were to my husband, but And then he gave me his best recommendation of what's right for me. And to me, that's the beautiful flow of a sales conversation. And you can even take it one step further with then I wasn't sure. So he showed me his option B. And option B was a very clear So then I went back to option 1 of, okay, this is it. And to me, this is a general way. If that's all you get, if you want to stop it now, don't actually. But if you did, that would be enough for you to go forward into a sales conversation. And when I say sales conversation, I don't necessarily mean hopping on the phone. It could be the same through Messenger, through a Voxer conversation, through email, like whatever works for you, as long as you feel like you can create that connection. So that's the general bit. I'm going to break down each one of those pieces a little further so that you understand what's happening in them and that we can address any questions that may be coming up. So the first part is creating and crafting connection. And so, in any of those situations, phone, Voxer, Messenger, whenever I'm talking with somebody, I want to make sure that there is a moment where we're actually just connecting as human beings and as souls, and making it really clear that it's not about sales, because it's not. To me, like, that's okay, we're getting to know you. Like, this is just you time. We're getting to know you, and if you don't work with me, I had a cool conversation with somebody. And I'm not going to say that, but that is the approach that I have in that moment. I pretty much start this sessions with y'all the same way, because I don't want to just dive into what we're doing. I want to know how you're doing. I want to know what's going on, if there's something you want to talk about, like whatever. And so if I'm talking to somebody who's new to me, I may even tell them why I'm excited to get to know them, or what I saw on their website that really excited me, or what I saw that we had in common. If they've been in my community for a while, but we haven't like chatted personally, then I'm probably going to be pretty excited that, like, oh my God, we finally have a conversation, or like, oh my God, after months of Messenger talk conversations, we're finally having a face-to-face, and I can put a face with what we're talking about, or like, a living face as opposed to just like a picture. And like, as I said, you guys are probably familiar with this, because this is what I think it's a crucial part to, set up and end any type of connection with somebody, whether it's a one-to-one session or a group session, or whether it's a sales conversation. There has to be that connection, like, to anchor in the beginning and close. To me, this is, again, where we are super focused on making sure that we see them as a person, making sure that we're setting the intentions to ourselves, that we're going to listen to what they're saying, and that we are going to see them where they are. We're going to see what's possible for them, and we're going to let them be seen, heard, and appreciated. And sometimes that's all people really need. If any of this doesn't feel entirely natural to you, then you can just ask how they are, and give a little, about how you're doing, and, ask something that isn't, or talk about something even that isn't super businessy. And it could be talking about how the weather is where you are, and asking them about how it is where they are. Or, you've seen me do it in lives where I just talk about oh my God, it's really hot here. And then somebody will tell me about how it's snowing there. And I'm like, that's crazy. I don't want the heat that is right now, but I don't want feet of snow either. So in this, I will say that I don't like the normal, I don't want to call them bullshit, but yeah, kind of like the bullshit questions of where you're going through a list trying to get to know them, or how committed to your goals are you, just because they don't feel real to me. I would rather set the energetic intention that people aren't reaching out to me unless they're serious about transforming, rather than try to manipulate somebody who isn't quite ready, or try to manipulate somebody into the awareness that they need to make a change. Simply put, if somebody needs to be manipulated into that, they're likely not going to take the actions that they need to create that transformation, and it's not going to be satisfying for you. It's not going to be satisfying for them. It's probably not going to lead to a whole bunch of referrals or testimonials, so why bother? Okay, so that is step one. Step two would be that listening part. Listening and aligning. So once you've connected, you want to know where they are, what's working for them, what's not. Are they a good fit for you? Are they a good fit for the ways that are open to work with you right now? That's kind of the box we're in at this point. And we'll talk more in a later lesson about whether someone's aligned for you, because that's its own long thing. But usually I just ask people to tell me, where are they in their business right now? It doesn't have to be complicated. Most people with a little question like that are going to give you more than enough information for you to get clear on what's going on. I very seldom need to like probe besides like getting specific once they start talking about things. And that feels a lot more comfortable to me. It's like, instead of prodding and trying to create a response, it's just me responding like I'm in a normal conversation, because I am. It's so much easier. So in this, you can also notice when like whatever they're saying that isn't working or that they would like to work. You're probably taking notes. I normally just make a note to jot those down so that somewhere in the conversation or right then, depending on how it flows, I can talk about how I've helped people through the same thing, how I've experienced it, et cetera, just like putting storytelling back into this and showing that, hey, you're not the only person who goes through this, and I can see you to the other side. That's basically what we want them to get out of this call anyway. Okay, I need to drink real fast. Okay. Whew. Okay. So this is also where you're going to get really clear on what their actual goal is. A lot of times people think they're coming to you for one thing. That's not actually what they want to achieve. There may be a simpler way to do it. There may be a different path. There may just be a different angle. But that's also what you're trying to hone in on. Where do they want to go? How do you feel like they need to get there? And really, what's their vision of success? If they're only going to be satisfied if they reach a tangible milestone, and that's the only thing, depending on what you do, like that may not be right, because there's so many other pieces of growth that they may need to work on those before they hit the tangible things, and that's still growth, and it's still success. And yes, we want the tangible elements as well, but it's not always sustainable to go from where someone is to the tangible. And you can create quick wins, but is that right for them? If they won't be able to repeat what they're getting with you, is it ethical? Not sure. It's your own decision. Morals are personal. Just giving my thoughts here. So wherever they're trying to go, though, we do want to know, why is it important for them? And that's really crucial, because they need to have an idea of their vision and their purpose, and just have something that anchors them into this. If they don't have any of that, that can be I don't want to call it a red flag, let's call it a yellow flag. That can just be an indicator that they're going to need more support. And that could mean they need to work with you longer. That could mean they need a more supportive offer package. It could just mean that they're not ready for some of your biggest work yet, because they need to really focus on the groundwork. A whole lot of options here, and you're going to have to really focus on finding out what is going to be best for where they are. But if somebody doesn't know where they want to go, it's really hard to get them in the car to go somewhere, because there are so many possibilities. They're going to be like, well, we could go here, we could go here, we could go here. And all of those options are great, but what's actually the right place for them? Where is their own GPS trying to lead them? So they may need more coaching, more mentorship. They may need to start with lower tier offers so that they can kind of not even stabilize, I guess, get clear and figure out, hey, I want to go to the South. I want to go to this part of the world, and at least have that direction before you get in really deep, so they don't have to backtrack. You may see this more in Manny-Gens, just because Manny-Gens like to skip all the steps. You may not, but just noting. At this point, I want to note, if I'm getting on the phone with somebody, and typically if I'm in any other sort of conversation with them, I've already done my Scorpio stalking them. I've looked at their website. I've probably looked at their social media. If they've signed up for a call, I've definitely looked at their human design. If they haven't signed up, I've probably asked them for their human design just so that I have an idea of where misalignment could be happening. A lot of times I can get some good clarity just by looking at their site of like, oh, you have 1 million offers, or none of this talk sounds like something that people are going to connect to, or I've looked at everything you do and I have no freaking idea what you do. Like, all of that helps me hone in, what do I think this person actually needs? And it is surprising to me how many times people are surprised and pleased that I've taken a few moments to look them up and see what I think they need and what kind of thing is going to be aligned for them. I recommend it. And also noting that at this point, again, I have zero expectations for anything. It's just I'm focused on bringing them to their clarity point and having that great connection. So at the end of the day, I'm having a great conversation. Maybe I'm getting a client. Maybe I'm having a new connection who's going to remember me when they need what I'm offering, or who's going to recommend me to somebody. Maybe I just have some new insight on who isn't my client or who isn't the highest vibration of a signifier I'm looking for, because that can be really helpful to help me pinpoint, like, okay, the signifier actually needs this quality or needs to be at this place. And that was something I wasn't aware of before. So it all helps. In this part, I do like to ask questions just so that I am super clear. And it's not like specific questions. It's just I want to make sure I have an idea of the vision that they want to go to, and I have an idea of what I actually see for them. Sometimes they're the same. Often I want to make sure that I can see something bigger for them than they can see for themselves, because if I can't believe in it, why should they work with me? Just a thought. So next section would be amplifying and clarifying, and that's basically what I just said, of the really tapping into something that's bigger. Most of us can only see like the little cube we're in. We can't see the big possibility that's there for us unless we are like consistently in quantum space or heart space. And even then, it still may seem a little big. So in this section, we want to clarify all of their visions, their goals, everything. And if we feel it, amplify it back so they can see there's actually more potential there, and just give them a little bit of possibility. And that gives them the hint of like, oh, that's how she's going to open my door. That's how she's going to help me do something different than I have done previously. I could repeat their words back to them with a little tweak. This usually isn't something I do consciously, but it is like I was listening. You can tell that I'm listening because I'm using your own words. And also it's going to make them feel more comfortable. It gives them a little more security. And in this, the main point is that we understand their vision, and that's giving them that energetic taste of working with us. And note that if they're a mani-gen or a generator, if you know that, you're going to want to ask them some yes or no questions at this point about their vision and about what they want, so that you're clear that they are actually working with something that's aligned for them. So often people aren't, especially if they're not familiar with their design. At this point, this is when I started letting my brain go to, what's the next step? What am I going to recommend them? What do I think they need? And maybe it's me, maybe it's not. But that's when my brain starts like, okay, let's pull in these ideas. So we clarify what their desires are. We amplify those desires because it's our responsibility to see the full vision for them. And again, this, like the example from the Christmas tree story, is he took me to a tree that was probably bigger than I would have picked out. And then he took me to a smaller tree. I didn't want the smaller tree. Why would I want the smaller tree after seeing the bigger tree? If you told me that big tree is going to fit in my house, fuck yeah, I want that big tree. Like, why wouldn't I? Don't care. Give me the big fucking Christmas tree. So in this point, again, ask questions to see what feels right. Show them what you think is possible. And often we just need to know that somebody has tapped into that vision with us and that somebody believes in us. I've had some interesting experiences. Tell you about one of them. This is a what not to do. I was applying for a mastermind because it was somebody who I'd never worked with, but she was very highly recommended in what she does. She's worked with a lot of big names, and I was aware of that. And I was super excited about it. It was a little weird of a call. There was a lot of name dropping. Afterwards, she emails me, and I never really understood if this was the intention or not, but she emailed me and basically told me that she didn't think I could afford to join her group. There was a whole lot of WTFs going off. I sent it to my husband with like did she just say what I thought she just said? And he was more offended than I was, which grounded Taurus to make him cranky. Something weird was going on. And this was she just couldn't believe in me or what I was doing because probably it was a lot more woo and a lot less tangible than a lot of people who were working with her. So she couldn't get it. She was comparing me to like Kate Northrup, and I was like, that's not what I do at all. Like that isn't. And she was like, oh yeah, it's the same message. I'm like, no, it's not. But if somebody can't see the vision, they're not going to be able to support you. And if they can't believe in you, they're not going to be able to get you to where you want to go. So obviously I never joined that group, and I immediately joined something that was more expensive. And I afforded it. Thought about emailing her that, but that was petty, and Kristen doesn't need to be petty. Point of this is, when we're looking for a mentor, we really want that strong backbone behind us. We want somebody who sees our vision and who can take it and see what we aren't seeing, who can take our blinders off, who can believe in us, who can adjust us when we're getting off course, who can, open up different pathways that we aren't seeing. And to me, even if we aren't sure if we're going to work with somebody, or even if we know we're not to at this point, we can still give them a little bit of taste and like crack open a door for them so they know that somebody believes in them and that they can just like adjust where they're supposed to be along their own way. Okay, next up, invite. And this is the fun part, especially for the projectors. So this is where we're going to actually be talking about our offers. I like to start it with a little bit of consent because consent is good. So this could be as simple as, now that we've had all of this conversation, would you like to know more about working with me and what I recommend for you? Depending on how the conversation goes, it could be more like, so do you want to talk about the possibilities of working together? Do you want to know, what I suggest? What's my best recommendation for you? It often just kind of goes there on its own as well, but I always do the second check of consent to make sure that people are there. And it's also good for mani-gens and generators. We'll have a separate design or separate lesson about human design in the sales process, but it gets them on board, which we need their energy on board if they're going to actually come on board. So from there, what are you best recommending for whoever it is? I usually like to have 2 options, unless I'm in a launch, and then there may only be 1 option with different tiers, or there may just be 1 option. Your call. I usually have 2 options, whether it's a tiered or whether it's here's 2 separate things. It will depend on what's best for them. I'm not going to suggest something if something isn't right for them. And often I will explain, here's why I suggest this one. And, here's this other thing that is almost as good, but here's why I don't recommend it as much. I like to be very candid with it. You can ask if they want that information. You may want to just tell them about the offers first and then ask if they would like your opinion and your recommendation. Most people like to be led, but giving them a little bit of free will involved with it, not a bad thing. And if you only have 1 main offer, that's fine. Just focus on that. I like tiers and or payment plans just because it gives me a little bit more flexibility, and it allows people to get the right level or the right amount of support that they need or that matches their budget without it being, pushy or gross. It can be a little more aligned in my opinion. That said, it does let me manage in like a champ, which sometimes can be great and sometimes not so great because I can get a little scattered. So if you're managing, pay attention to that. When in doubt, keep it simple. So at this point, we're going to simply describe the best ways to work with you, what they get, what happens in it, what's creating the transformation, what you see the two of you actually focusing on during that time, what you see being created, or what goals you see that could be hit. And you're not going to give them the prices. You instead are going to ask them, if you're giving them two structures or two offers, ask them which one feels more supportive and which one feels like it's going to help them go where they want to go. Simply because we want them to feel into it before they start getting fear and potentially ego all up in the energy. And when you talk about prices, sometimes people can get that like solar clinch, and we want to let them make their decision from a place of clear energy rather than when their chakras are all clenched and tight. Also noting that we mentioned the prices, it's often people will close down and not hear things if they think they can't afford it, or they'll just naturally gravitate towards the cheapest one, which may not be the best offer for them. It might be, it might not, but I like for people to consider before they worry about price, because so often I'll hear from somebody like, oh, I can't afford that type of program, and then a month later they're actually in that program. It's just they had like, hesitation about the specific name, or about, I didn't think I'd be able to work with you one-on-one, or like whatever it is. But just let them feel into it beforehand. That said, because I always get asked this, I do like to put prices on websites, simply because it's human nature to assume that prices, when not listed, are either too cheap or too expensive. And that gives so much room for people to like, nah, not for me. If I don't see a price, depending on how well the site is, I'm going to assume either too cheap or the site's really well done, possibly right price, possibly too high, possibly just too many humps or hoops to jump through with this person, and I don't know if I care to go down it. Also, I don't typically have a lot of spare time, so it just goes to like my saved tabs list, which there are literally thousands of things in my saved tab list, so you can imagine how many of those actually get returned to. Not so many. We don't want our sales page going to that tab list where it just sits there and festers and doesn't get any love or appreciation. That said, with all of this, what I find really crucial is giving people space to decide. I don't like to rush them. I don't like the, if you sign up in 24 hours, you get this price. If you sign up in 48 hours, you get this price. I don't like that unless somebody knows going in that it's a flash sale. If coming in, they knew I was having a flash sale and it was, you can come in within these 3 days and it's this, sure. If it's, they're just talking to me about, an offer, and I'm like, oh, if you join today, it's, I'm just gonna throw out numbers, $5,000. But if you join tomorrow, it's $7,000. Okay, no, that's shitty. That's just really shitty. And yes, it gives them the, not scarcity, but it gives them the push to come in quicker, but it also doesn't honor their energy and allow them to make the right decision, depending on their human design type, which we'll talk about later, can be actually really, I don't want to say devastating, or destructive, but just really bad for them. And fully admit, this is the piece that traditional salespeople aren't going to like, and you can make your own decisions. But to me, following other people's energy and honoring it is a crucial part of allowing this to be really ethical and safe and sacred. That's really important to me. You can decide what's important for you. I'm assuming if you're here, it's probably important for you, but do as you will. And again, I'll do a little quick talk about human design because we are mentioning it. So, if they have a lot of open centers, they need to make the decision outside of my energy because I'm very defined. You can compare people's charts to yours. I am very defined. So I know that my energy could affect somebody, especially like my excitement. If I am super excited about working with them, I don't want that influencing them, and I don't want them to regret the decision. I also don't have the energy for refunds, and this will prevent that. There's a reason why I generally don't have refunds. I've had one, and it's because programs she went into didn't actually come to fruition. Okay, and other small things to look for: if they are emotionally defined, I don't want them making decisions quickly. If I've worked with them before, it's okay because they're already in the flow. They already know me. I know how their decisions work. They've already been clearly started the wave of decisions before they came with me. But generally, I want people to sit on it if they're emotionally defined for at least a day so they can feel, what does it feel like as everything fluctuates? So you've told them the offers. And then once they have said what feels good, you've told them the prices. And you can give them the recommendation with that of what is the best fit, why. And in that, we want to make sure we include the benefits and not just like, well, you get 2 group calls and a 1-to-1 call in Voxer, but like, no, what do those actually do for them? People don't always know these things that are so easy to us. So what does each one of those things actually do for them? How does it get them closer to where they want to be? And so it can be something like, okay, you get an extra call so we can look at your human design and make sure that everything that we're doing is accustomed to your energy. Or you get a call once a month so we can look and, dive into your systems and make sure that you're using the right things to support you, and also make sure that the structure that you have for all of your tasks is the most efficient and the most, I guess efficient is probably the best word, I don't know, but that kind of thing. And then describing each little piece with like that. So you get Voxer support, so you don't have to wait for a call when something comes up. If you need a little mini clearing, or if you need to ask me a human design question, or like, whatever it is that you're doing for them, you have that access to me. Making sure they understand what each piece does for them so that they can see the full picture. And also just the awareness that what you recommend for them may not always be the highest option, and that's okay. It's truly what's best for them. So now that we've invited them in, we go to the last step, which is lead. Yay! And this is where we're leading them into that next best step for them. At this point, we've determined whether they're aligned or not. So assuming they're aligned, my favorite way is just to kind of move them into the energy of what happens next. And that could look like, well, it's going to depend if it's a launch or if it's just them talking to me. So if it's they've just come in to talk about, like, say, my regular 1-to-1 or, a smaller offer that I've had, it might be like, okay, so if that sounds really great to you, I can have my assistant send over the contract tomorrow. And then once that's signed, you'll receive the first invoice and the link to schedule our first call. You'll also get all of the information about like how to find me on Voxer, blah, 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 like whatever they need. If it's for launch, it may even be, like if it feels really aligned for you to be part of the circle once we get off the phone, then I'll send you over the payment link once we get off. I would be so excited to have you because of blah, 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 blah. And just making sure that you put your own heart into this. And at this point, if you don't want to do either one of those, you can also go into do you have any questions about, the offers that I just talked about? Do you want to talk about which one you think might be the most aligned for you, or which one you think might be the best fit for you and your business? And regardless of how you've expressed, like which one of those kind of pathways you've just taken, this is going to get to the point where they're going to let you know what they actually need. So if there's any resistance or objections, which we'll talk about later, that's going to come up now. Separate video, because this is already a very long video and we can keep it focused. And so they're going to tell you what they need, what their concerns are, what any of those objections are. If they seem lost, you can again give them like, this is what I would say is best for you. Here's why. They may need, depending on what type of person they are, they may need to actually look at something, like a sales page or a document, and you can tell them like, hey, I'll send that to you when we get off, and if you want, then we can schedule another call in like, I don't know, 3 days, 4 days, whatever, so we can talk things out once you've had time to look over everything. And you may want to ask them if you want to talk about any resistance that they're going through. If they're going through it, often it's not like real resistance. It's just like those brief, like, can I do this? Can I up level? Can I change? And you're going to know what to say because you already believe in them. It's a lot of this is just trusting yourself and your ability to lead because you believe in them and you know you can get them there. So of course you're going to say the right thing. I know that sounds simple, but that's the way that I go into this. And of course, like, we are going to talk about resistance and objections more. I'm not just going to leave you with that, but that is the way that I like to set the intentions and frame the mind work on this, so that's how I'm coming in. And knowing their resistance, or even just like a little things that are questions for them, that can help smooth things over. And it helps you even if they don't come on board, because you know what you may need to adjust and what you talk about, and or how you need to tweak things coming into this. If everyone's concerned about price, it could be an indicator that maybe the prices are wrong, or it can be an indicator that you're not making it really clear like what the value and what they're going to get out of it and how much transformation they're going to get out of it. It could also be an indicator that you're talking to the wrong client. So everything teaches us something, and we can learn from it. I will say there are some exceptions. I've already talked about emotional solar plexus. Open identity and open spleen are essentially the same thing, and I typically inform them why I don't let them make a decision, because often I won't let them make a full decision. Like, they'll tell me what they want, and I'm like, okay, great. And if you know what you want to do, and I am super, super excited, and I would love to work with you. I know this is different from what you normally do, but because of your open spleen or because of your open identity, like whatever it is, I want you to make the decision again, to reconfirm the decision when you're outside of my energy. So you can do this once we get off the phone. You can do this, later tonight, whenever. But I want you to go in a room by yourself. It can be the bathroom, and just take a moment when you're outside of everybody else's energy to feel into what's going to be most aligned for you, and see if you still agree that it's this. I've never had anybody be mad about this, and I wouldn't expect to have any of that, but that's just my own, something that feels important to me. Other things to note with exceptions: if somebody's been, I don't want to say like harboring the past, but if they're just talking about the past a lot and they can't seem to get past what hasn't worked for them or what they've done and where they've been stuck, they likely need another call, just because they need to shift out of that old energy before they can really come into something else. They're stuck. It's up to you if you want to just release them, or if you want to give them time to get unstuck, and then it's do you want to get on the phone next week? Or do you want to talk about this next week? If they are stuck and I do want to work with them, and we are making another let's talk next week, or let's talk in a couple days, I'm usually going to give them some sort of homework, so there's something that can create change for them, instead of just go sit there and marinate in what you've been doing and what you've been marinating in for the last how long. Just giving them some sort of activity to help bring them to awareness and to help bring them to something new. And that's generally all of my big exceptions. The main part of that is just leading them through and showing confidence in what you believe is the right decision for them, what you believe is the right recommendation, honoring their energy. I will say, if you feel nervous or unsettled, ungrounded during any of this, it could actually be their energy, especially if you're open emotionally. But I do, if I feel anything, well, there are a few things. Okay, so you could surround yourself with white light, or I don't even know where I got this, but I see gold foil, confetti, I guess, big confetti. And I just picture that going through all of my auric fields and all of my energy and just clearing everything out. You could grab a pendulum and do a little mini grounding session. If you can do it quickly, you could drop into heart space and just center yourself and see yourself as a magnet, and everything that's aligned is coming to you and everything that is not aligned is trickling away. Those would be my first go-tos. After I've done one of those, I will likely call upon their guides to help bring them to center and to help shift anything or release anything that needs to be released on their behalf. Their guides are doing it, so I'm not in control, and there's no way that I can manipulate that, or manipulate is probably the right word, just manipulate that into something that's good for me and not good for them, because their guides are in charge and their guides are always going to honor them. And you could 2-point as well. 2-point for them to become clear or to get to their own place of possibility. There have been times when I've ended the session with like, okay, I'm going to go ground after this. Do you want me to do a little mini clearing with my pendulum just to help bring you to clarity? All it's going to do is to help release anything that may be hindering you from getting entirely clear. I've had mentors who have told me not to do that, but if it feels good, it feels good. That is what I'm going to say on that. No, I will say something else. We don't need to do a lot of energy work or clearing on them, but with the consent, if it's a little mini thing just to get clear around, if your offer is right, I'm okay with it. I know a lot of people will say, you don't want to do any work on them until they come in, which yes, you do want to be receiving whenever you put into something. For me, I'm going to do some sort of clearing when I'm done anyway, just to ground my energy and to release anything that's stuck onto me. I can spend 30 seconds or a minute, whatever, helping to bring them a little more into clarity. At this point, I would probably just do a really quick 2-point and be done with it, depending. Probably wouldn't do a 2-point for like a really low priced offer just because energetically it might drain me. But you can come to your own conclusions on how much energy you want to give. Okay, so that is a lot of information. And I am, of course, not telling you that you have to follow the structure like clockwork, because that's not the point. The point is about leading people, doing what feels good. It's about conversation, not just like checking off, oh, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this. It's just about how to lead people through a conversation where you're truly leading them to a purpose, to an intention, and you're showing up as your best. So that is the grand lesson, and there'll be some fun info below. Bye!